All right. Thought it would be a good time to do a MetaSPN week one update and set my week two predictions and goals and kind of get into a few different things here. So, I guess welcome back to the idea supply chain, where we take a look at where ideas come from and what make those ideas valuable. And here we are with MetaSPN. As a quick recap, I am the world's first professional meta athlete or mathlete. And I'm using my research to actually implement specific changes in the world, and I'm predicting them and making them happen uh, kind of live as we go. And so here's what I predicted, I set my goals as last week. So the first one is to publish the Physics of Mastery essay. This is basically the launch point for MetaSPN. I use Shohei Ohtani's game of blending kind of the Western market stat focused aspects of like baseball with the uh, Japanese consciousness refinement, um, of baseball and use this blend of pitching and hitting to kind of have this statistical anomaly. And I'm using that to showcase the power of mastery. And this is the whole idea behind being a meta athlete. I am making myself compete on my ability to reason about the world. And I'm showcasing my predictions to actually show how I am challenging the reality that I think I know versus the one that actually exists. And this is how we advance knowledge forward. Um, and so, kind of the next goal was to get three inbound sponsored DMs. I did not accomplish that. I got two potential sponsors that I've been working with. Um, but one was actually really important. Um, and this led to what I realized we can start calling TrustOps. Um, and so I'm hoping to work with ThinkFish on some level. We haven't figured out what that looks like yet, and that's totally fine. But uh, when I was talking to them, they helped me understand uh, what aspects of what I'm saying are particularly valuable. Um, because if you come in with an understanding of like time violence, and I'm able to talk about that, um, that makes my life so much easier. Oh my God. I have been trying to start from zero with people on so many levels. And this is the first time that someone came into my DMs and was like, hey, I've read some of your stuff and this idea is really cool. Holy shit, does that make conversations easier? Inbound, highly recommend. Anyway, um, but what I realized is there's a great opportunity here for something I'm calling trust ops. And we focused on like DevOps when it came to coordinating around code. But, as things started to move faster, um, in the startup space, DevOps doesn't really make you money. So you've got RevOps. And so revenue operations is focused on like how do we operationalize and optimize the money making processes of our company, and when we scale that you get Meta and Facebook and Instagram and fucking TikTok and all this bullshit. um and I don't like that because I see all the ways that it's broken. um and so I'm focusing on this idea of trust ops, and we're optimizing for meaning. And so the first one that I'm looking at is this fundraising effectiveness index. And so one of the things that I realized is I spent a lot of time hurting relationships by trying to raise money before I understood what raising money was all about. And I did this because I didn't know how to raise money. I left my job at a corporate place, during the pandemic when nothing was in person. and I'm learning from people who are doing stuff online. And, I remember one of the ideas that I had was like, if these idiots can raise a bunch of money, I can. Like, these people have dumb ideas. Mine changes the world. Um, and then I realized that a lot of other people also believe that they're changing the world, and investors may or may not care about that. Um, but there's a level of business understanding that I didn't have. And specifically, I didn't have it because my research was about the ways it was broken. And so this created a really weird feedback loop. And basically, one of the things that I think Fish really does well is they help the founder understand if they're ready to like raise money yet. And this is one of the things that we talked about because, um, it's hard enough to raise money if you're ready to raise money. It's a very painful process, and there's so much time violence that's part of it. Um, but it's not because of the people involved necessarily. It's because of the structures that all of these things exist in, and they exist in a state of hyper competition, where it's not just a singular game that's being played. It's all sorts of games, and it's all sorts of games on different timescales, which makes this um, very hard for founders to be able to um, orient around. And so, what I want to help founders do with this whole TrustOps set of metrics is to help them move quickly while moving at the speed of humans. Because let me tell you, I have tried to move faster than a lot of people around me, and it really hurts trust. Even when you're trying to be super transparent and you're trying to share everything, if you're moving too fast, people can't understand you, and that creates complexity, and complexity is violence because it takes time, and that's the whole kind of problem with time violence, right? But we create systems that people can't understand, and then they can't communicate about, and so that everybody's just communicating complexity, and nobody is able to really uh, condense that complexity down and help people navigate it. And so that's what I want to do by creating a conscious economy where people aren't trying to understand all of these games in order to survive because um the fastest system is one that wastes no understanding. And so as I've been modeling out what meta SPN is, um like I want to turn alignment into a competitive advantage, right? Predictive accuracy in relationships, integrity under pressure, coherence across AI and human agents, AI for alignment, not exploitation. A network where every participant becomes more trustworthy by participating. This is what crypto promised and then totally didn't deliver in the whole more trustworthy by participating thing. But there are ways to do that. But we need a new game, a game of trust. And so with Meta SPN, I'm treating business as the sport of consciousness. Every founder, fund, and operator is a player. The scoreboard isn't revenue, it's coherence. So the Meta SPN League is our arena. Each season is going to see how fast we can align, um, how well we can align, how fast, clean, conscious we are compared to fragmented ones. And so we're not going to break our rivals. We're just learning faster. Um, and so, like, I'm done with the extraction games. I'm building games of alignment. Done with attention inflation. Sorry, clearly. Economies of understanding. I'm done with time violence. This is TrustOps, the conscious infrastructure of the AI age. Um, and so, if you wanna join season one, please reach out. Um, this is, we're going to see where this part goes. Um, but this is really a great way to capture, I think, what I am going for with Meta SPN. And so if I look at what was uncertain in week one, and we can come back here to kind of this weekly tracker. Um, so I was hoping a post would break 10,000 views. Wow, was I wrong on that? Like Twitter got 200. But I'm anti-mimetic, and so I don't get large numbers of views yet. And it's one of those that I know that eventually I will, and I have to be ready for that. But it doesn't actually matter because, I didn't get three aligned sponsors to reach out, but I got one on LinkedIn, which I'm not even on very often. That's the crazy thing. And then I did have someone else reach out via Twitter that I've chatted with before, and I think there's another sponsorship there. Um, and I've got another index that I want to add in, but it's not quite there yet. And so I don't really have a new collaboration formed by Sunday, but you know what? I'm going to go ahead and mark that as a yes, because you know what? I do have a collaboration, and I didn't count initially the Thinkfish one, but I'm going to now because I did end up publishing that. I don't know if I actually did it by Sunday, but we opened up discussions, and there's so much alignment there that we're going to figure out something to work together on. And it started. It doesn't necessarily have the official like collaboration that I had in my head about it, but it is a collaboration. And so yeah, I think that's good. Uh, the insight velocity. So this is actually interesting because I've been working on um, the actual metrics here, and so there were basically four key metrics that I see as forming all of the bits and pieces that make up TrustOps. And so it boils down to ethical alignment, um, insight velocity, uh, your trust index, and your predictive accuracy. Um, and actually, I should say these aren't necessarily part of TrustOps. These are part of the MetaSPN like performance metrics. So these are what I'm looking at for my own um, performance in terms of how fast I am able to consciously move. I haven't made the notes here yet on the ethical alignment part, but basically, I have stated core values the entire time of uh, kindness, generosity, and curiosity as the basis of everything. And so I have some scoring that I have run over my uh, MetaSPN data room, and this is actually an update from the last video. So I ended up creating a um, Mathlete data room. And so I took all of my like tweets and my YouTube videos and then my long form writing from like Medium and Substack and the various ghost blogs. I have tried a lot of different things. And so I pulled them all in for some like different types of analysis because I want to actually measure all of the things that I'm talking about. And so for like the ethical alignment, I am basically like looking at tweets and scoring them from 0 to 3 based on their alignment with each of the three values. And then so each day has a possible score of like the number of tweets times three. And so you can kind of use this to gain a metric that you can track over time. Um, like predictive accuracy. Basically, I'm just really terrible at predicting anything right now in terms of timelines. I understand that. So, but that's actually intentional, and I'll talk about that at some point in the future. But I am predicting myself moving faster than I can provably validate because it helps me skip the bullshit when I don't need to, like go through it. Something I've learned from Elon actually, um, indirectly. But that'll come later. Anyway, so insight velocity is the super cool one though. Um, and so I've actually been experimenting with Extropic's new um, like thermal library. Um, and so they released this along with like their new thermodynamic processor. Um, and I'm figuring out how to use that to like get some really cool uh, visualizations together on my actual learning curve. And so I wanted to map out how well I am able to actually learn and integrate knowledge. And so I built this pipeline out that basically, so it runs through like these 7 steps here. And so I first of all like create some graphs like into kind of semantic neighbors, and set up all of these to like some defaults. And I don't know all of these in detail because I've let the AI take care of most of it, which is cool. And then so for like the clustering, I actually went with like 2 different things. And this ended up being like I took this down a different route a little bit later, but so this had like basically ChatGPT recommended 2 ways I could look at it. I could look at it through like the um, the topics, which are like this HDB scan clustering. And so these are finding the topics that I'm talking about. But then there's also this graph-based community detection. And since I was using tweets, this was actually looking at like different relationships. Um, and so I was like, well, let's just do both and kind of see what happens. And then I went into like trying to set up like the temporal dynamics, and so like look at like the daily acceleration and momentum trends, synthesis forecasting, exploration pressure, and kind of trying to see how like I'm moving towards outputs like blog posts versus like generating new ideas because I'm constantly um throwing ideas out on Twitter and doing all of this stuff. And so since I've got 5 years of tweets, I can actually like do this. And then I was able to like start creating this dynamic system modeling. So with this oscillator model, which is totally cool. Um, and here's the like, this is where I'm doing the back test and calibration and kind of making sure that things are like predicting accurately. Um, and so it's got all the pieces here. Um, and then that's where I get into this like uh, thermal modeling, with the stuff that Xtropic released. Let's see. And then I actually realized that I could, because I was able to see where this synthesis was occurring from my tweets, I wanted to see if I could figure out where my synthesises weren't happening and like where my blind spots were. Um, and so this like basically looks at where I'm suppressing things, which is kind of crazy, right? Um, anyway, I was able to use this to create a whole bunch of different visualizations, and uh, let's see if I can actually get to some of my tweets here. Um, so first of all, I want to look at a graph. Let's see, that was in here. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Maybe I don't have it in here yet. Uh, okay. Well, that's fine. We'll just look at the okay. So this is where I kind of went through um the thermal library. And this was a really cool visualization that I was able to kind of get here. Um, and so like this is basically showing the physics of ideas. Um, and so I was able to create all of these graphs, and like basically this is my learning curve over time. And so we're able to see how basically I'm able to do more output with less energy. Um, and like there's just all sorts of crazy things that I was able to create here. And so we can actually see my ideas converging here. Like they're taking shape, right? Like this is kind of nuts. Um, and then yeah, I actually took like a Sudoku puzzle. Oh, there we go. I'm asking for a thermoputer because that's what Elon called it, which was funny. Um, and like so this is kind of using the Sudoku puzzle from Dave Shapiro to like he had done a test on the thermal library. Um, and so I, use that as one of the examples here. Um, and this shows the like performance. And so this is like thermodynamic dashboards for ideation and understanding, um, which is nuts. And so that was the first part of the week, in kind of getting things set up from like a business standpoint and understanding kind of the first part of the um, nature of what a mathlete does, right? And so basically, as a mathlete, I am creating these types of metrics that will help us understand how to coordinate more effectively. Um, and there was actually another interesting touch point that tied in here. And so one of the key things that happened last week was the Harvard uh, newspaper ran an article about grade inflation at Harvard, and it had somebody breaking down in tears saying how hard they worked and like they couldn't believe that the grades were inflated. And so this brings us to the question of like, well, what is a grade for? And so we don't have a coherent competition anymore because we've created a system that makes people produce so like they put so much work into stuff they have no idea what's actually valuable. And this is because of something I call hyper competition, where you're playing a whole bunch of different overlapping games at once and you're not sure what feedback is for which game that you're playing and with who. And you can't even see all the games that you're playing. And this creates this incredibly massive, like computational cost in your mind for it to be able to kind of focus on like what context matters, what are we doing here? You've got different time scales. Like it's incredibly hard with all of the information we've got access to now. This is incredibly like heavy computation that we're stuck doing. And I think this is actually uh, at the basis of a lot of the problems with like ADHD and autism and a bunch of other neurodivergent conditions. I think a lot of it goes into this processing of the information of the world around us in different types of ways and kind of different optimization patterns. But I have some work to do in experimenting in that. So we won't necessarily say um, that for certain quite yet, but it's at least an idea that I'm currently exploring. Um, but the next interesting thing ended up being a conversation with somebody from uh, Ohio State, who's a former colleague, friend of mine. He's done some really cool things, and he understands a lot of the same problems that um, I've been looking at. And he was telling me about this new initiative that Ohio State launched, and that basically they want to be the number one university in the age of AI. And so I said, okay, what does it mean to be the number one university in the age of AI? And then I wrote out a plan for how to become the number one university in the age of AI. And it's really all about understanding that it's not about the information that you have, it's about how fast your students are able to grow, develop, understand themselves. So, like DEI was right in its heart. It understood that there were people who were being excluded from the future, but it didn't understand how to make them work together in a way that was actually functional. Like it was trying to put people who aren't ready for like moving at a certain speed in places where that speed was expected. And we've gotten to this whole system that is not cohesive. We've got these like individual games that are being played and they're not working together. And so, with a university now, we want to see like belonging is about like rhythm, and your rate is like supported by the university. I went through university without any fucking support, and I did it all on my own and basically paid them a bunch of money to like babysit me and kind of make a vague recommendation of like what to learn, but like it was a very adversarial relationship. I never felt like they were helping me do anything. They were hindering my ability to do things at the speed that I wanted. And then I got a master's degree and a half of another one because all I knew how to do was to like try to educate myself more, because I was like, why am I not actually getting ahead in the world? Like I got a degree and like I'm working hard and I'm a software engineer who's learning and growing and my salary is actually growing steadily, but I'm not getting further ahead in the world because my growth rate and like my workplace's growth rate weren't aligned. I wasn't aligned with my university's growth rate. I've never found a place where I've been able to grow as fast as I've wanted. And it's because I didn't understand the point of college, because college didn't understand the point of college when I was in college. So, I feel like it's fair that I didn't. But I do now, and I want to help college understand what colleges are for now. And so, you know, growth velocity index, right? So, how quickly a student integrates knowledge, deepens self awareness, and expands agency. That is what college should be about. Like, everybody's bitching about college bubbles. Like, no, college is supposed to be a fucking bubble. Learning is hard. And when you're exploring various futures and trying to understand what type of person you want to be, what type of person the future needs you to be, you need to be able to understand different things, synthesize things, integrate ideas from different cultures. It's fucking hard. It's exhausting. And you shouldn't have to worry about how to pay bills while you're there, because holy fuck, like you've got a lifetime to learn about the economics of the business world, which will be a lot easier now that we're getting that all straightened out too. Because that's kind of been a fucking mess as well. Um, but like we're trying to make people learn the business stuff in school and the school stuff in business, and like it's a whole fucking mess. We're not making changes cohesive anywhere. So, Ohio State wants to do this. President Carter, you want to make OSU a global leader in AI for like in the AI universities, right? Be the first conscious university in America. There you go. Greatness comes from synchronized acceleration. You watch Ohio State play football. You watch the level of preparedness that steps onto that field. You imagine every single person making themselves and the people around them the best possible versions of what they can be. So let's get rid of EI and go to diversity of growth velocity. So you've got to come in, you've got to understand how fast you are moving, you've got to understand how fast you can move, and you've got to play with that tempo. You've got to find your edge. So I want to know which university is going to be the first. I think Ohio State can lead. I plan on working with them too. It's local, and frankly, like I'm a Buckeye fan. All right, I didn't go to Ohio State. I went to OU, but um, I think I would have liked to go to Ohio State, but I don't think I was ready when I went to college because I didn't know what college was for. And so, this is how you win the future. Um, and so I actually have this whole series here. Um, this gets into the whole idea of the bubble of time. Like, you're supposed to be able to step outside of the world. Like, it's infrastructure. It's a sacred bubble. And look at what we've created. The only thing I got from college is fucking a shitload of debt. But why did my university not at least like help me do any like there needs to be a continuum. And so the university should track lifelong learning because the university is supposed to help you learn as fast as you need to be able to learn in order to adapt. So we need the university to actually figure out if they are fucking helping the people that graduate from there. Because if they're not, they need to be figuring out why not and fixing it. We haven't had a way to really track that yet. This gives us the actual way to do it. And so, economics says that productivity is output per hour. Conscious economics is hours created. So it's pure economics. And so that's really like what the conscious economy is about. And again, President Carter wants to do that. Turn a land grant university into a time grant university. League of Time. Time and change will surely show. All right. Well, I think that's probably a good update for week one. It has been a hell of a week. Revenue is still at zero, but the trust index is climbing. I can actually see my insight velocity now. I've got a really cool graph somewhere in one of these areas that shows the actual learning curve from my tweets and blogs and into papers, and I'm um, showing how I actually like ideate privately within AI sessions and then socialize the ideas through tweets and then condense those ideas into papers that I publish. And basically, I've been working on shrinking that, uh, time down, that whole process down to as close to real time learning as possible. And that's what the next week is going to be. I would really love to have Xtropic as a sponsor. I think they are super aligned. The whole EAC, you know, Beth Bezos, the founder, Gil at Xtropic. Um, Big in the whole EAC thing, and so I'm leaning towards creation of an effective acceleration index. Like, how conscious is the acceleration that you're actually like? Are you accelerating just to fucking accelerate, or are you actually like doing something with that acceleration? I think we should be able to figure that out. And so yeah, I'm looking at that for the next week, and then just kind of seeing where these other things have bounced. I'm really focusing on the relationship building now, and kind of nailing in some of these key metrics and getting a dashboard up for myself. But if we check out Meta, I cannot type while I am recording here. So yeah, basically, I'm developing the website. You can check out the Physics of Mastery on there. YouTube channel is linked. I need to change this. This isn't quite right. These sponsors are not quite how I'm going to do that after all. I do have my Conscious Academia playbook linked here. I've also started. Publishing some posts on the website. And so basically I'm going to be expanding the content footprint this week. And then yeah, continuing conversations and hopefully getting some actual revenue flowing in through these like sponsor agreements and actually getting TrustOps out into the world because some really cool fucking things are starting to happen now. And also, there were some bubbles that are about to burst because people don't understand what is actually valuable. Um, and it's about to suddenly become very clear to everybody. And so, yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. We can go from there. And yeah, check out next week's update, or maybe I'll have something later this week. I've got a couple of videos in the works, so we'll see when those might pop out. So, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.